Hey guys, Enigmatic Mr. L here, and I want to do a quick video talking about what I think the roster for a Fire Emblem fighting game could look like. Source Gaming, uh, the Source Gaming channel did a video talking about it, and I just wanted to throw just my 2 cents in as well, my picks. I don't know whether the fighting game would be something more like a Pokken tournament or like that sort of thing, where it's just like straight up health bar, or it'd be more like a platform fighter, like Smash Brothers, more like recent platform fights like Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl or something like that. Either way, I think talking about roster could be interesting. I wanted to have a mix. I wanted to have a lot of the main Fire Emblem games covered in some way, shape, or form, some character from them. Also want to have a nice mix of classes or like class equivalents in there, as well as just having a nice mixture of like male and female characters, heroes, villains, that sort of thing. I will try to briefly talk about what I think like each character's fighting style could look like, but for some of the characters might be like, well, I think they're important, think they deserve a slot. What they do with their fighting style, moves, I don't really know. That said, let's just get onto the list. If a character has an asterisk by their name, that just basically means I think they'd be DLC. I basically went with 27 characters for like the base game, 8 DLC characters, and then Zane. Zane's basically just here as like a flavorful random button. You get to the match, Zane randomly transforms into someone. That's it. Basically the equivalent of the random button. That said, let's just get on to the list. Marth, the poster boy for the Fire Emblem series. Don't think his inclusion would be too surprising. I think in this style fun game, like making a bit more different than his Smash Bros. Counterpart, Smash Bros. Version, I think he'd just be the most like well-rounded, balanced fighter. Maybe making use of like the Fire Emblem Shield, just basically the equivalent of Mario in this series. Tiki, I can imagine, would transform into a dragon for extremely powerful stats, but because the Dragonstone only has limited uses in most of the games, she can only transfer a set amount of times. She transfers back to a girl, just a girl that has like pitiful stats. Don't know if it would be something like my original idea was she starts about transformed. She has to end the stock very quickly because each of her stock, after like a set amount of times she attacks, she just transforms back. Or you could just have a map to a certain button or input where she transforms in between them two. But for each stock, she can only attack so many times in the dragon form for the rest of that stock. She's just a little girl. I think she would be an important character to add because not only she is like are the Arcnea games, Fire Emblem 1, 3, and their remakes, 11 and 12, Awakening as well. Have an asterisk by her. Think it'd be funny or fitting. She was DLC and Engage, have her be DLC again. I could also see Anna being the DLC character because she was DLC in Fates, and in I can't remember Three Houses. She just was included in it or part of the DLC. But you could swap these either way. And there's a lot of things you could work with there, pull from her, like Waking or Fates, where she uses a bow, or like Hero, she uses an axe, or makes use some of like the class changes in those games. Don't know exactly what to do with her. I just think, other than Marth, she's basically the face of the franchise. She would be an important character to have in here, though not exactly sure what the moveset would be. Alm and Celica would be like a tag team duo, kind of like Zelda and Sheik from Melee. Like Alm would be the more straightforward and basic of the two, probably the default. He's just focused on like he's strong enough, but he doesn't have any like fancy tools or like tricks up his sleeve. Then you can swap to Celica, who has long range, like powerful magic, but it does damage to her. I can also do something like maybe if you're like far enough away from the opponent, she just has like a passive healing effect, kind of referencing like the Angel Ring and that sort of thing from Gaiden in its remake. Or it just might have like a certain input, to do to restore health. So if you're far away, you can either like use magic, but it costs some of your health. There's a nod to that game. Or either a passive healing effect, but your stats just aren't as good as Alm. Or like a certain input healing. Think could be interesting. Shade here, I just think it would be interesting to have a character that originated from like the Cypher card game here. And honestly, you might be able to say that she would more so fit in like with the Fates characters because that's technically where she's from. And really here, you could change it for like someone else. I just like happen to pick Shade as just a magic user. Not entirely sold on exactly what the moveset would be. I just think it'd be interesting having the Cypher card character be in the game. Sigurd, the protagonist of Genealogy of the Holy War, uh, very prominent in Engage. I think he would be on his mount. Mount's a big part of the game, and as like a result of like in reference to his high movement, he might have like when that translates over to a fighting game or something. He might have like the fastest movement or sort of thing. I know like um, your movement stat and speed stat are different in the fighting games. I think translate over to a fighting game, you can just have him since he's like on a mount, just translate to a very high speed. Beyond that, uses javelin, swords. Not sure what the details could be. Self, I think, to make him a bit more distinct from his father, he probably wouldn't use a mount either when he first starts or it's like some sort of gameplay mechanic. Because even in his own game, once he promotes, he can dismount. Granted, there's no real reason to, because even with horse slaying like weapons, he has like the Nihil skill. But I think it could be interesting in reference to like Genealogy of the Holy War's mechanic, where you get a certain number of like once you hit 50 kills with the weapons, it gains the ability to crit, and for every kill beyond that, you get an additional point of crit. Maybe have something like every time Seliph lands an attack or something, he gets just a tiny bit stronger. Also, reference to the fact that he doesn't start out as strong as Sigurd, but you invest into him, he promotes, like that sort of thing. Not sure exactly what the details be, how balanced be. Maybe something like he starts out relatively weak in the other cast, but with like once he like gains enough momentum, once he puts up damage, then he's relatively like stronger. All things considered, the other cast could be interesting. Arvis, I think, is a classic Fire Emblem villain. It's like the mage archetypes use fire. Not much to say here. Just think could use like a few mages, like zoner type characters, and Arvis is a popular pick for that. Leaf, he starts out somewhat lackluster, but he's got good growths, and more importantly, especially in like not reference to his gang, Thracia 776, but in Genealogy of the Holy War, or once, or if he promotes, he gets like a mount and just like incredible stats, pursuit, A rank in like almost every weapon type. I think he could be work similar to something like Joker from Smash Ultimate, where he starts out, like maybe fairly lackluster or something, but reach a certain point. Maybe it's like a comeback mechanic or something like that, where he completely transforms, gain the mount, and then he's just unstoppable either for like the rest of that stock or for like a set period of time. Roy, honestly, I don't really know what you make much of the moveset for. I just think we need someone from Binding Blade. The protagonist is a good pick. The only real interesting thing about him, he has like the titular Binding Blade, like a sword of fire, can attack 1-2 range. Maybe do something with that. I can also see an alt where he has his father Eliwood, just instead of using the Binding Blade, use the Durandal, which would be kind of a stretch, but I think it would be close enough or fitting enough. Merlinus, I just have here as like a joke character. I mean, he appears in both Binding Blade, a somewhat important role. He's one who mostly like deals with like exposition to Roy. Then kind of appears in like Blazing Blade as a joke, so it'd be funny to put him here. The primary way I have in mind is just he has bad stats all around. I think he got into like heroes, but he has like extremely low attack. And just do something like that here, where he's basically the equivalent of like Pichu from Melee. You just play as him to like flex on your friends. You beat them like with Merlinus. The other way he could go on that is keep his lousy stats, but he has a gimmick where like each character they have to be defeated like once through the stock, you have to defeat him like a set number of times. He just like keeps coming back, and that's a reference to the fact that that's how he works in both Binding Blade and Blazing Blade. If he gets defeated, he just comes back on the next map. Like he was playing casual mode before casual mode was a thing. That would be the sort of way if you want to like in balancing like a weak character you have to defeat multiple times. But I just think having him as a straight out joke character would be less gimmicky, less I don't know how difficult that'd be to implement. I think that would work just as well, if not better. Lyn would basically be a sword character, very high speed, high movement, high attack speed, not the best damage output, not the best survivability. Good maybe have her use like a bow as like her projectile. Not much to say about her. Hector would be the inverse of Lyn, where he's very slow, both in his attack speed and in his movement speed, reference to like his class, and he has 5 movement even after promotion. And then but he has very good strength and defense, kind of like tank hits, super heavy, or like armor, like that sort of thing. Deals deals out a significant amount of damage. Erica and Ephraim would be a tag team duo similar to Almond Celica. Kind of like Lynn and Hector, maybe it's not quite as extreme, where you have Erica being like the faster and more skilled two, and Ephraim's just focused on dealing out straightforward damage, maybe capable of like tanking hits better than his sister. Leon is a classic Fire Emblem villain, one of like the fan favorites. Be another mage like Arvis, but specializes in dark magic, and I think it would be interesting because he's like the sorcerer class, and also I believe, I think he can become the summoner class if you play like the creature campaign, even though it's not canon. And just like as a nod to those games, where you could just have him summon like one enemy at a time. Like it'd be a weak enemy that dies in like one hit, reference to Phantom's die and like only 1 HP. You can only have one at a time, reference like the summoner mechanic in Sacred Stones. But I think that'd be interesting. You'd have to like balance it out a bit, make sure it's not too overpowered. But I just think that'd be a fun thing to do. Ike, protagonist of Path of Radiance, one of the major protagonists in Radiant Dawn, fan favorite character. His inclusion makes a lot of sense. Honestly, like Source Gaming made the point that Ike's fighting style, it's much more similar to a Cloud in Smash Bros. Than it is to Ike, which makes sense. When they were making Ike for Smash Bros., I think it was like Sakurai just had like a blank slot available for Swordman. And Ike kind of fits it, like strong but slow, but in general, in his games, he doesn't really fit that. His speed growth's fine. His strength isn't like that particularly strong. It's like fine. It's more well-rounded. And he could, in reference to his Ragnar, I have like projectile attack, kind of similar to like Cloud's, like, thing is like neutral B. Ashnard, the villain of Path of Radiance. Some might say, looking at this list, it's got like 5 characters from the Tellius games, but Ashnard is the only one that's, he's not in, Radiant Dawn at all. He's solely a Path of Radiance, quote unquote, like representative. Not quite a rider, but might as well be. Could do some interesting things with that. I don't know how they balance the flying, but could be interesting. Micaiah, at the start of Radiant Dawn, she is the protagonist. Has very high magic. Once she promotes, she uses stabs. I think you could have her be like some sort of like status penalties on the opponent, like have her have like a silent stabs which disable certain move, like special attacks or whatever, like special moves equivalent would be for like a set number of terms. Have you use like the freeze staff. Warp and rewarp isn't in her game, but she can do as an emblem, and Fire Emblem Engage, you could have that in there, maybe as like warp as a recovery, maybe like rewarp, that sort of thing. Generally hits very hard, very slow movement. Maybe like some of the attacks slow, but they have like very good range, extra 1-2 range, especially like the status penalties. Can't take hits well, but could do some interesting stuff, I see. So I thought it would be good to have like a thief on the roster. I did consider Yunaka, but I just don't think she's popular, but she's not really that story relevant. So his appearance, he's there in Path of Radiance, even if he's that like plot relevant. He plays a lot larger role in Radiant Dawn, and you could do some of the things, even though this wasn't implemented in Radiant Dawn at the time. Just reference to like thieves have like progressed over the years, have his like knives like temporary weaken unit stats, or they inflict poison, like they'll slowly like drain the enemy's HP for like a little bit after they attack. Would be pretty similar to Lyn, just like very fast movement and attacks, can't tank hit well, doesn't do much damage per hit. Alencia, some people have called her like a lord of the series, or at least like lord adjacent. Plays a fairly prominent role in both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. Would be another flyer character, basically equivalent of Pegasus Knight. Could join up with like Tanith and Marsha for like a triangle attack for like Final Smash, or whatever the Final Smash equivalent in this game would be. Think would be fairly interesting. Chris, I probably should have had up here with the Arcanae characters, but I was just going like 5 to 1, 2, 4, 5. And after I made the list, I was like, close enough. Chris, I think, would play similar to how Byleth is in Smash Brothers, and just reference to the fact that they can be like all sorts of different classes in their game. They could use like cavalry for one move for like one attack to dash quickly from one side to the other. Use like switch to a bow, maybe use like some magic. Just be sort of like jack of all trades character. I think would be interesting. Crom and Lucina, I don't think they'd be like a tag team character like Almond Celica or Erica and Ephraim. I think they would both be fighting at the same time, probably like Crom with like Lucina providing support. And just reference the fact that Awakening has that parrot mechanic that's like a big part of it. I think like a game called like Project X Zone 2 or something like that did something similar as well. Beyond that, I don't know the specifics. I just think that'd be interesting. Robin, along with Robin and Lucina, is like one of the three major protagonists of the game. Not entirely sure what the moveset would be. On one hand, how they work in Smash Brothers would be fine. Reference to like weapon durability, like that sort of thing. I can also see them going because like Robin can pretty much any class. They could focus in on one of those classes or bring a little bit of everything to them. Might be too similar to Chris in that regard, but there's ways you could go about with their character. I'm not sure which. I just think they're important enough to include in my spot on this roster. Corwin would play a little bit differently than how they do in Smash Brothers. In Smash Brothers, they mostly just use the auto as another swordsman, occasionally like some dragon attacks from melee. I think it would be inverted here. Most of her attacks would just be transforming into a dragon. Parts of body just close range melee. Occasionally using like her sword here and there. Could also just have some sort of like terrain effect, referencing the Dragon Vades and Fates, and rolls and implement engage. Don't know how that could work out. Or we could just give some of that latter one to Azura, just make her stand out. I'm not entirely sure how they could implement a singer into just like a 1v1 fight when she's not playing like an active like supporting role, but there's probably something you can do. It was either adding like Azura, one of like royal siblings. I just think Azura is in the story next to Corrin. She has the most important role, and I may or may not still be just a little bit salty to the fact that despite having an important role, she lost a role as like a DLC emblem to Camilla in Fire Emblem Engage just because Camilla has bigger assets or something like that. Dimitri is my favorite Fire Emblem Lord. I want to include him, although to be fair, he uses Lance, but beyond that, I'm not sure what he could really do to really stand out. I think one way they could go about him, just referencing like he becomes like obsessed with revenge during the time skip and that sort of thing. They could just have to give him like kind of like Lucario's aura mechanic, where like the more damage he takes, the angrier he gets, and he therefore like gets stronger. Might be a reference to like Wrath, like Vantage, that sort of thing, a popular combo. I think could work. Claude, I didn't want like a dedicated archer on the list, and of the story ones, it was either him or Takumi, which I just like Claude a lot more. I think he could like bring more to the table. Most of his attacks focus on archery. Even like Three Houses was the game that gave him like the close combat skill. We could fight at close range. Probably not as like effective as some other users, maybe like Hector or someone, but can do that. Could bring in like his Wyvern or whatever it's called for the like the special promoted class that he gets for his Final Smash or Final Smash equivalent. Could bring that in, or maybe just like a few select moves here and there. Edelgard, I originally didn't include in my roster. I just thought it'd be weird to have Dimitri and Claude have 2 out of 3 Three Houses Lords, but not Edelgard. Could work similar to like Hector, just being like the slow moving armor, like army equivalent Lord. Or you could do something like have her like Hegemon form, like the final boss of the Azure Moon route. That could either be just like her main default, attack, that sort of thing, or that could, or more so, what I'm thinking is that just her Final Smash or Final Smash like equivalent. Byleth, I think, having the 3 houses and Byleth, 3 houses, I think is popular enough. I think that's fair. I think he would work a little bit differently here in my version than he does in Smash Brothers. I picture him more as just like a hybrid zoner / melee fighter, where he can use magic as a result of being like the Enlightened one class, but he doesn't do it like as well as like a dedicated mage, someone like Arvis or maybe like Leon doesn't do that as well. but his close-up combat is probably better than either of these two, even if it isn't as good as like a dedicated one like a Hector or something. Could work well. Aleer, I don't think would have like summoning emblem mechanics because most of the emblems in that game already have them as other playable characters. Instead, she has a proficiency in gauntlets, or once she promotes to the Divine Dragon class, she can use gauntlets. She'd probably just focus on that as like a pure brawler character. Would be a little bit weird, but I'm not sure who would fulfill that role. Maybe if like her Final Smash or Final Smash equivalent, she becomes like the Fire Emblem that happens at like the end of the game, like since she becomes an emblem. Maybe something like that. Sombron, I think Fire Emblem Engage is popular enough, like most recent entry, to have like another playable character. I really wasn't sure who to pick, who like contribute enough to like the story. I just kind of picked Sombron. I don't think he's like the most popular villain or anything, but I think he could work well enough. Leanna could be here with like a Ronin alt. I don't think Fire Emblem Warriors or even like Bannerone are that popular, but I want to have like someone from that game. There's probably enough. I've barely played it, but there's probably enough elements you could incorporate to give Leanna a moveset. Same with Shex. Just kind of played the demo for a little bit. I don't think it's really like my cup of tea, but I think it was like Delzethin posted a video outlining what a Shex like moveset could be. Did a pretty good job of that. Maybe like some sort of like resource management. Could be interesting. Subasoft from Tokyo Mirage Sessions. It was either going to be like her kind of like in the Carnage form with Sita, or Itsuki in the Carnage form with Chrom, and I already have like Chrom here. I don't have Sita. So I thought this would be interesting. Not sure exactly the moveset would be. I just think Tokyo Mirage Sessions deserves a slot. Then Kiran, I'm not the biggest Fire Emblem Heroes player. I played like the first book at launch, and then sometime later I think it'd be like book 2, and then like that's about it. I think it would be interesting giving him like his summon mechanic. Again, Delzethin did like a video talking about what he could look like, and you could just have him like summon characters, but they have different like rarities, so you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to have to make use of the hand. You could have one at a time, but you could have like healing characters like Riz, just pure melee combatants like Bartray, maybe like someone like Scythia for long range attack. Some of the more minor characters are basically the equivalent of like Sys trophies here. And which ones you get, if they're like 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, they would have various like effectiveness, but you can only have like one out at a time. You just kind of make use of the hand that you're dealt. And then Zane, as I talked about at the beginning, he's just a glorified random button. You pick Zane, the match starts, he just transforms into someone random, and he stays that character for the rest of the match. So that's my list. Let me know which characters like you would include. If everyone on here you think, no, they definitely don't need to be on here, or you can't believe you forgot like X character, they definitely need to be on here. Let me know what you think some of these characters, what their fighting styles could look like, or just suggestions. Well, I think they should include character X and they fight like such and such. As always, thank you so much for watching, and this is Enigmatic Mr. L signing out.